My name is George Cisneros, and I was born here in San Antonio. I'm a working artist, and my art forms are in sound, music, electronics, and community memory. And this is part of Una Plática. I have always had an interest in sound and information, in nature, and began to work with these areas and didn't realize that it was art. So the inspiration to be an artist was never really founded. What I did, I admired artists as people. But my interest did not always have an art form. They were thoughts, they were constructions, and from a very early age, I knew that being a popular, formal musician was not something that I wanted to do. It just happened. The irony of the story is that my parents insisted that all of the children participate in music. And we had several piano teachers in our life that would come to the house, or we'd go to their little homes where they had a piano in the front room. But my interest in piano was the inside of the piano often, and just playing with strings and playing with the sound of the piano, not the music. And I remember Mrs. Clark told my parents, "You're wasting your money. You should become a drummer." And that's how I sort of drifted into percussion. And the whole time I was doing that, I was sort of surrounded by a lot of people that just came out of the service. And one man, Leonard Hernandez, who was stationed in Greenland, came home with a tape recorder one day, and he invited me to look at this Wallensack tape recorder, and it was an old open reel, and it was so old that it only had one head, and you could play the tape backwards. And all of a sudden, my interest in sound changed from reality to an altered reality, and I'm no more than like 9 years old. And also there was a Mr. Cepeda who owned Cepeda TV and radio repair over here on Buena Vista Street, and when I'd walk past there was always sound coming out of his shop. He had oscillators and old Army radios and shortwave radios, and it was all this noise. And again, 9 through maybe 11 years old, there was this interest in this different reality. And throughout this same period, of course, our family is very steeped in music, and whether it be KCOR or KTSA on the radio, or the family's friendships with the different musicians in our neighborhood, there was always this alternative thing of sound. And so I think I began making constructions in my imagination probably by 11 years old, 12 years old. One of the things I said earlier was community memory. And community memory can be people talking as we are today, giving, if we don't remember, who will? The whole process of oral histories. Community memory is preserved in murals. Community memory is preserved in newspapers. now with videotape, then digital cards. Community memory is encoded within our songs. Songs are about something, and the whole corrido tradition, the whole ballads of the, whatever language it is, community memory is preserved because of the arts. And there are now institutions that preserve the things that preserve community memory. We did not have museums that were part of our culture for a long time here in San Antonio. We did have great museums in the community that were repositories of art from other cultures, broken pieces of glass from Egypt, or statues without arms from Rome and Italy, paintings from other centuries. But we've never really had community memory that was contemporaneous. And places like Centro Aztlán are really critical because they are able to take the contemporary community memory. It's not a repository gallery. It's not an archive. What it is this is what's happening today. And that is an important element of community memory that is not necessarily filtered by the academy and the universities and the art galleries. This, where they want to preserve history or dominance of another culture. Centro Aztlán provides contemporaneous, real-time interactivity with the community about community memory. And there's nothing, even the most abstract piece that you find on the walls here, or the most abstract pieces you can hear, are dance forms. That is part of today's community memory, because we wouldn't be doing it if we weren't trying to remember who we are. For me, believe it or not, my two favorite programs at Centro Aztlán were the Segundo de Febrero, which always, is important because it's actually the moment of deception that occurred. And then the other program I used to like was Superheroes, because the concept of projecting in a young child's head, what are the elements, what are the characters, what characteristics do superheroes have, and why are they superheroes? And I remember early shows where a child might have Superman, but the face is his grandfather. Or, the concept of what do we hold up as models of strength. And so those two programs were very important to me in understanding what Centro Aztlán was all about. I don't often encourage young people to get into the arts. I ask them, what do you think is important and how do you communicate it? They may choose not to get into the arts because the plastic arts and the performing arts are not an easy life. It's very difficult. They may choose another art form and that become an educator or become a elected official or something. But they have to learn that everything is art. Everything you do has to be done with a level of precision and detail that any visual artist would apply to their work, or any musician would apply to their work. So I think that when I'm talking with young people, I say use the arts as a training ground to make your brain stronger. Sometimes I feel that the reason a person needs to go into the arts is to learn how to become self-disciplined and how to learn about how the people who are successful did it, and then you respect them for that. And maybe what we need to do also be creating is a generation of good listeners who can hear any music and decipher it And they don't have to be an excellent musician or even a musician. Create an audience for visual art, because a lot of people don't know how hard it is to make a piece of art, a painting, a sculpture. And if we could train people to appreciate the work that artists do, then we've continued with the community memory project. A lot of people go to art shows because they like the free wine. They don't necessarily go to art shows because they like the painting. Or if they see a painting on which they're not familiar, they know how to decipher it and understand it, because all art is code of some sort or another. And when you look at or listen to music, you realize that whether it be conjunto, rock and roll, heavy metal, classical, jazz, marching band, what musicians and artists choose is sometimes an accident of birth. They were born into a family where people like music, and they were born into a family where their father was a sign painter, and the guy says, I'm never going to paint signs, I want to paint on canvas. So art is an accident in a lot of ways, and it's very important. There are people who choose not to pursue a career in the arts, never loses their respect for those people who did choose a career in the arts. You know, one of the things that has been lacking in our community are venues. Musicians are almost forced to play in clubs, to wander around the tables at a restaurant, for tips, to play only in the high school band. And one of the things with painters is the painters sit in their garage for years because there's no galleries to show their spaces. So I think it is imperative, if you're not going to make art, make spaces that art can be shown or heard. And I do love the fact that in some cultures, every park has a concha acústica, a band shell, where people can perform. And if all of our parks and public venues had spaces where poets could stand and be heard, where musicians could stand and be heard, where there were enough public galleries where simultaneous art shows could be had. I do feel that the lack of venues did suppress our culture. However, because of people like those in the West Side Arts Coalition in particular, we have decided to make venues out of San Antonio and make our own spaces. And that's a very critical, important political, aesthetic, cultural step that we defined it. And one of the most important ideas is you can't deport culture.